evening, I'm Nicholas Hoare. Regular listeners will probably appreciate that we are extremely fond of books of essays. And essays, like poetry, are not exactly the most saleable commodity in the world, but at the same time they're by far and away the most distinguished when taken as the jewels they are. They're short and snappy, they're readily digestible, and they're enormously entertaining. They can be serious, but for the most part, in any event, they're not intended to be heavy weathering. They're intended to be extremely enjoyable, light fare. One of the greatest writers in the current world we live in is a remarkable character called Jeremy Clarkson. And Jeremy Clarkson has written now at least 5, if not 6, bestsellers, all of which are collections of essays. That in itself is quite an achievement, except that the essays themselves are so funny that the British are, at this point, absolutely rabid fans of this man. And it doesn't matter what he's writing about, they want to consume it bodily. The latest book, which is now in paperback, you can get hardcovers or paperbacks galore by this man over here, is a collection, and it's called The World According to Clarkson Volume 3, which gives you some idea how large the world of Clarkson is. And I'd like to just give you a little snippet of this sort of thing as a flavour of what's in here. And the titles alone are absolutely first-rate. The essays have such particular names as, if I can just find the right page, How to Blow Up a Dead Seal, The Royals, A Soap Made in Heaven, Amazing What You Can Dig Up in Africa, and there's a literary future in the iLav. So, you get the idea. This particular one is called Real Men Don't Go Home at 7. Speaking to an audience of women in Glasgow last week, Mrs. Blair revealed that back at the start of her husband's career, he was told by Labour Party officials that he wouldn't get very far if he kept going home at 7 p.m. to see his wife and children. Sherry Blair's message was clear. Men should spend quality time with their family no matter how many wars they've inadvertently started, and no matter how many constables are knocking on the door wanting to know about cash for ermine. I'm sorry, but I just don't understand. If you were an Iron Age man and you came home from a hunting expedition empty-handed because you wanted to play with your children, you'd starve. If you were a penguin and you came back from a fishing trip with nothing but snow in your flippers, your baby would die, and the following year Mrs. Penguin would soon find a new mate. This is the problem. I am designed to kill foxes, bend every woman I meet over the nearest piece of furniture, and give her a damn good seeing to. But in an evolutionary nanosecond, that's all changed. After several million years of programming, we've been told that what women really want is the husband who leaves his colleagues in the lurch at 7 and comes home to make a delectable quiche. This is very, very funny stuff, and that is actually the low man on the totem pole. It goes up from there. I've simply cherry-picked to give you a mixture of flavours, and I think you'll find that this book of essays is excellent. So The World According to Clarkson, and indeed any of the Jeremy Clarkson works that you choose, you will get a very good giggle out of. The next one is my friend Sarah Waters, whose latest book is called The Little Stranger. This is not new, but it is one that many people have avoided for some reason because it is deemed to be a ghost story. If they've avoided it, they've made a classic error because the book of its kind is unique. It's a very clever story set in all the usual cliches, but with a twist to it that will really leave you amazed. And it's pretty hair-raising stuff. The Little Stranger, which I won't define, is something very small and furry that habitates a large and very cold castle in England. And it's the story of what a particular family discovers when, over a period of time, this creature makes itself known. It's very good stuff. And Sarah Waters, I think, who has an immense range of subjects to choose from, God knows she's done it again with this one, has picked a corker. So for those of you who missed it, run, don't walk. Wonderful book, The Little Stranger, Sarah Waters. And my last one is anything but light. This is not the sort of thing you take to bed with you. It weighs 500 pounds. No, I'm exaggerating grossly. But if you wish to have a book to sink your fangs into and read of an evening or 2 or 10, you'd probably get an enormous charge out of the latest book by Juliet Gardner. Juliet Gardner is a British historian of great repute who has now taken a giant slice out of a nasty decade, the 30s, and written a historical study which covers the social, political and cultural side of a decade of the most difficult time for Britain. And it is, of course, not confined to Britain, because by definition it has to cover other countries as well. But this is a classic, and it's very nice to see that in a time when there were 3 million unemployed and there were riots in all directions, there was still social calm and social enjoyment, political interest, all sorts of things going on at the same time during this mess of pottage that was in fact the 30s. So anybody wishing to look at a period, and not just the political side, which of course was a hotbed, you would do very, very well to look at the 30s, subtitled An Intimate History by Julia Gardner. This is a lovely book, a noble beast, and well worth the investment. Good history.